Whoa, check it out. I'm on the other side now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Glad to see you for our third installment of the Federal Reserve Unit screencast. This is the one called Keynes and Hayek in a nutshell, because nutshells are small places we can use to encapsulate big ideas in a hopefully simplified way. Uh, Here we go. Shall we jump in? First, a brief diversion. Money is only what we say it is. Money is only what we say it is? What are you talking about, Mr. Stewart? I got money right now. I got money in my pocket. I got a credit card that tells me money. I got a debit card that says money is money. What do you mean it's only what we say it is? Well, we all just agree to value the same thing. I'm going to move over here while we go. For example, we just think gold is shiny and it's cool. Diamonds are shiny and cool. Stones. Brief aside, there is an island, Palau in particular in the South Pacific, where they just have massive stones in people's backyards and they use that as money. And the trick is they don't even move them, they just remember the story. So they say, hey, would you help me clear my yard? I'll give you a quarter of that big stone I've got in my backyard. And the other person will be like, sure. And they can say, hey, they can go to someone else and say, hey, will you help me weed my garden? I own a quarter of that other dude's big stone over there. I'll give you eighth of my quarter, and you can help me do that. And they just remember where the stone is, and they just remember who owns part of it. Pencils, dollar bills, electronic blips in our account. Beep. Success, payment succeeded. Or bitcoins. We all just agree to value the same thing. That's what we decide money is. And if we agree, then we can use those things, or the idea of those things, for real services, right? You could exchange gold for milk, right? I'd be like, I got some gold. Will you give me milk? People will say yes. We can explain that we have lots of stones in the bank. So take my IOU for milk. Here's my paper that says I owe you for milk. This could be a dollar bill. What is that? It's just an IOU. Can we borrow? We can borrow more IOUs or pencils based on how much I owe someone else and how well I've been paying them, or based on how many pencils I say I have. For example, I could say, look, I got 100 pencils in the bank. Can I borrow more? And the pencil bank will say, dude, you've got a lot of pencils. Sure, I'll give you more money. Or you can say, dude, I owe a lot of people money and I've been paying them off really well. Can I borrow more? And banks will be like, yeah, you have been paying them off really well. You must have a steady source of income. Sure, you can have more pencils or stones. And the cool, crazy thing is, if we all think we're good for it and things will get better, we will keep using our agreed upon value system, otherwise known as a bull market. In other words, we like, hey, things are going to go up, things are good, you're good for it, I'm good for it, you've got money, I've got a job, I've got money, let's just keep going. But the problem is, if we don't think so, we will hold on to it and we will not spend our stones or gold or diamonds or bitcoins or electronic blips on our accounts. That's called a bear market, when things contract. But you may ask yourself, where does value go? What do you mean worth it? What do you mean, are you good for it? Value essentially just disappears. Magic. Because it never really existed. For example, stocks go up based on perceived value of that company, and the owner of stock can use them and that value to borrow or buy things. If I have stock in Google and Google stock is going up, then I can either say, hey, look, if I sold my Google stock, I would have a lot of money. Will you lend me money? And someone might say, sure. Or you might say, look, I've got a lot of money and based on the Google stock that if I sell it, I will have money to do that. Will you give me a house? People will say, sure. If the perceived value goes down, however, then the value just goes away, and the owner now owes the people who were borrowed from. But the dollars never really existed. It was just theoretical value. Shout out to 1929 and our stock market question. What? Money is just what we think it is? Crazy. Stay tuned for office hours to discuss the crazy belief of what money and value is. Okay, I don't know if that was a brief diversion, but back to Keynes and Hayek. Keynes, John Maynard Keynes, introduced the idea of deficit spending. That means spending more than we have on a year to year basis. For example, if I have $100 a year and I spend $110, deficit spending. Why does he introduce that idea? Because he says in times of economic downturn, governments need to spend money to stimulate the economy. How? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. How many question marks are on this slide? Far too many. Here's how they do it. Government spending and the monetary supply. Remember the monetary supply lecture? Yeah, it comes back. Well, we can do a couple things. The Federal Reserve can lower interest rates or put more money into circulation. That's monetary policy. This makes money cheaper to borrow. If money is cheaper to borrow, more people borrow money. More people have money to invest or spend. More people are hired. The economy grows. Or governments can spend money. Fiscal policy. The way they do that, quick aside, is they borrow money through bonds, which are IOUs, and say, hey, we're going to put out some bonds. You guys like to give us some money, and then we'll give you some back later with a little bit of interest. Trust me, people like to do that. This means the government either gives money to states for programs, hires new workers for government jobs, invests in large infrastructure projects or massive government spending, or by cutting taxes. More people have more money, more people have more jobs, more the economy recovers. So far, so good? Great. The result. For Keynes, he says it's okay to spend more money than you have because it's more important to keep the economy running in the short term. Economies run on belief. Remember, where's the value go? And people have to believe the economy will get better in order for it to do so. Harken back to our consumer expectations in terms of demand. And remember, FDR, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Let's all just pretend it's going to be okay, i.e., magic. Once the economy is humming along, governments can cut back on spending, raise taxes, and raise interest rates to get back some of the money they now owe. It all makes perfect sense. Potential problems? Pause this screencast right now, turn to the stuffed animal of your choice, and discuss the good parts and the potential problems of Keynesian economic theory. I'll wait. Oh, wait, I don't have to because you paused it. Super. I'm going on. Yes, you were right. How did you know? Thank you for coming back. One problem is it makes governments borrow too much money and incur too much debt. That's bad. We don't like debt. If you say, hey, I'm in debt, people go, that's a bad thing. Artificially juicing the economy when it doesn't deserve it. Maybe there are underlying problems, like giving everyone sugar. Sugar, anyone? It's probably not a healthy diet in the long term, right? So giving the economy juice when the economy may not necessarily want it, well, everyone wants orange juice, don't they? Right? Super good. But if the economy is already struggling or has some bad parts, we're just covering up the bad parts. It can lead to inflation. Too much money in the system leads to higher salaries and higher prices, which can then become a problem because that means your money is then worth less than it was before. Remember our soda machine example. And the government never really actually reduces spending on programs because they always meet someone's needs. Everyone's like, no, man, don't cut my program, cut someone else's program. And so politicians who never like to be blamed for anything never cut anybody's programs. Or they never raise taxes because who likes that? Who wants taxes to be raised? And that means we're continuing to spend more and more money and gain more and more debt, which leads us into more and more deficit spending and more debt. Rebut. Keynes would say, haha, I anticipated those problems, and here's what I have to say to you about that. Keynes would say, none of that really matters. Just forget it. Doesn't matter. Other industries will develop that will be robust. So there may be some problems in the economy. Don't worry, because other industries will show up. Since when was YouTube a thing? That's new. As long as the government can make payments on debt, no one cares, right? As long as you still pay money, remember our fiscal policy budget, who cares how much you owe as long as you're paying the minimum amount of what you owe? Countries aren't like people. That would be bad for me personally. Credit card debt, etc. You would eventually get to the point where you would not be able to pay any of it back. But the argument Keynes makes is countries aren't like people. And he would say having debt actually makes future borrowing easier. Thanks, Alexander Hamilton. debt gives us a financial diuretic, a new line of credit, we are able then to say, look at all the money we've borrowed so far. You know we're going to be good for it, and everyone else wants us to make sure we're going to be good for it, so let us borrow more money. Okay. And in the long run, we're all dead, to paraphrase Keynes, who actually said that. So who cares? Who cares about the long run? It's all about the short run, man. You know what I care about right now? It's the short run. Forget the long run. John Maynard Keynes, everyone. However, we have an opposing force. And the cool thing is these guys were both thinking and writing and arguing at the same time in the 1930s. Friedrich Hayek. Hayek thinks government should practice conservative fiscal spending and not mess around in the economy. He says, let the marketplace find the winners and losers. The market will always find the best industries and products, the ones that actually do something, the companies that have value, that make stuff. And the marketplace will find those and reward those who actually are good businesses. And if the government gets involved with spending too much money and increasing the money supply, that's going to lead to inflation, which will then cause the economy to stall as people can't afford to hire more or buy more. Remember that problem we also had in the 1920s, the devaluation of the dollar, and people couldn't afford to buy the things they were making. So there are some serious problems with interfering in the economy. Just pause for a second. I'm going to move this. Woohoo! Hi. Now, governments, he says, should not run deficits and get too far in debt. Why? Who's going to pay for it? Our kids or grandkids? Sooner or later, the bill comes due for the party, right? Someone's got to pay the bill for the party. And, the best thing to do is to say, hey, man, I'm thinking of the kids and our grandkids. Sooner or later, someone's going to pay for it. So let's stop borrowing. Moderate taxing and spending is the wisest way to move forward. And if the economy goes up or down, hey, just enjoy the good times and wait out the bad times. Expect and plan for the worst. Having extra money and savings is good for governments and businesses, just like it is for us. That sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? Problems? Pause, talk to a stuffed animal or plant, and think, if you didn't like the animals take, ask a plant. Think of the things you like about Hayek and the things you think could be problems. I'll wait. Oh, right. I don't have to because you paused it. Moving on. Yes, you were right again. Problems. It relies on slow growth and moderate gains. That could be too slow to help people who really need economic assistance. If the economy turns down, ignoring it causes pain. And sometimes problems are too great to ignore, like the Great Depression or the Great Recession. Recent events? You be the judge. No one likes a killjoy. Don't tell me about the bill. Just enjoy the party, man. People need help in the short run, right? Who wants to talk about when the bill is due? I don't. And there's no such thing as a true marketplace since governments are already investing or not investing, and companies need help to get off the ground or be supportive. They're already getting involved. The marketplace really isn't a marketplace, so you can't rely on it to pick the winners and losers. You need a central bank to do that kind of thing. Apologies for moving myself all over the place. I'm just trying to let you see the screen. Rebut! Rebut. Hayek says, hey, picking and choosing and getting involved in the economy is exactly what causes the problem, recession, and then causes more involvement. That's the whole circle that Keynes was talking about. Keynes loves circles, and Hayek is like, no, man, that's the worst thing. We need to cut it off. We need to quit now. You're creating things that are like too big to fail. If you pick and choose winners and make massive financial industries or massive companies, then when they get into trouble, you just have to get involved. And if the market knows they're going to get bailed out, they will be reckless and not make good decisions, which will lead to bad choices, bad decisions. Think of housing markets, investment schemes, bubbles, excessive lending, and excessive borrowing. If they know the government will sweep in or swoop in, do you sweep or swoop? You probably have to swoop first, and then you can sweep. Then they're going to act like children, and they're not going to be responsible fiscally. And who wants to be an adult? What do you think? Take a moment, Think about the two ideas. Who do you believe in more? Your questions on the document ask you, are you kind of leaning towards Keynes? Are you leaning towards Hayek? What are your thoughts about those two things? Come to our office hours to talk about Keynes and Hayek. And don't forget to take a look at the rap battle that is listed for you in the document, Keynes versus Hayek. And now that we have the background, the rap battle will make much more sense. Plus, we get to talk about things called rap battles. Hope you enjoyed Keynes and Hayek and our brief diversion into the belief magic system that is money. And we will talk to you later.